the cartels. Some cartel. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Girivaradari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Chiravanachari Vanacha Yamuna Chiravanachari Vanacha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvakacharya Satara's Divine Grace Abhay Charanavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Shri Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Shri Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Shri Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Gyanatinamandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshua Unminitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurve Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanti Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharayane Vishesha Sunyapadi Paschatati Shatarine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimati Vir Krishna Das Gosaminati Namine Namo Hamsa Nukashaya Prabhupada Priyayate Sudrida Sudhi Nisyam Bam Tasha Bhakti Nuvadine. Reading from the 10th canto. This is chapter 42. We've been reading about the breaking of the sacrificial bow. We also heard about the pastimes of Trivakra, Kubja, and we've been in detail hearing about Krishna after he straightened out Kubja, straightened out her mentality. He was walking around the town like he owned the joint. Of course he does. And Kamsa, had invited him to come and participate in a wrestling match. And, Krishna wasn't sweating it at all. And he was just kind of walking around, and Kamsa was scared. He was quite scared. He was very, very, he was seeing bad omens, and he was hearing about some of Krishna's, what he was doing in the town. Of course, word got around. I like how Krishna just sort of dispatched. He just busted everybody's skulls and then just kept walking around, looking around, true true boss, true owning everything, true hero. So yesterday, Mother Urmila was talking about the omens and what omens kind of mean. And she was also describing how even though Kamsa had seen or experienced all these omens, he refused to surrender. He refused to actually um, see the truth. He didn't want to face that, you know. I mean, he could have actually saved himself at any time. He could have just threw himself on Krishna's mercy and begged his forgiveness, but still he was choosing, even after all these omens. So we'll read about actually how Kamsa reacted to all these omens in text 32. Yushtayam nishikoravya surye chadbya samutite karayama shavai kamso Malakrida Mahotsavam Yustayam Nishikoravaya Surye Chadbya Samutite Karayama Shavai Kamso Malakrida Mahotsavam Vyustayam Nishikoravya Surye Chadbya Samutite Karayama Savai Kamso Malakrida Mahotsavam. Please. Yustayam Nishikoravya Surya Chadbya Samutite Karyama Shavai Kamso Malakrida Mahotsavam Yastuyam Nishikoravya Surya Chadbya Samutite Karayama Savam Kamso Malakrida Mahotsavam Yustayam. What are you doing? Okay. Vyastayam. Having passed, Nishi, the night. Kauravya, O descendant of Kuru, Pariksit. Surya, the sun. Cha, and Abhyaha, from the water. Samutite, rising. Karayamasa, had carried out. Vai, indeed. Kamsha, Mala, of wrestlers. Krida, of the sport. Maha Utsavam, the great festival. Translation by the servants of Srila Prabhupada. When the night had finally passed and the sun rose up again from the water, Kamsa set about arranging for the grand wrestling festival. Please repeat. When the night had finally passed and the sun rose up again from the water, Kamsa set about arranging for the grand wrestling festival. Om Jnana Tiramandasha Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we just read yesterday and the day before about how Kamsa was terrified, having heard about Krishna and Balaram coming into town and breaking the bow and killing a bunch of people and usurping a lot of his. I'm sure he must have heard that about his washerman, and I'm sure he must have heard that. He probably realized he didn't get his sandalwood paste or whatever from Trivakra, and he heard about that. So he's hearing about all these things, and he's absolutely petrified. He's terrified. He's mortified. He's freaking out. He's doesn't know what to do. And then he goes to sleep, and he passes the night not really sleeping, but instead seeing all kind of weird and unsettling, events in his vision, his internal vision. So at this point, when the sun comes up, um, he's so indicative of everyone. He's got such a big ego that he just sort of blew it all off, and then he decided, okay, let me just finish. I'm gonna still hope against hope arrange for this wrestling festival because hopefully my best wrestlers will dispatch Krishna. Still hoping against hope. We haven't quite got to that point, but we kind of know the story. And he just set about arranging for the festival anyway. And I was reflecting on the night and the day. So at night, it's dark, and we're all, depending on our stations of life. Some people work at night. I know some people that work all night. In fact, I know one person that comes to the temple that since I've known that person, they've had jobs or sought out jobs where they worked at night because they were ostensibly like a night person or a night owl. And then recently, that person told me that they were getting too old to do that kind of work, to work at night. And maybe it's too old, or maybe it's just more, enlightened, because we all have the experience. So the night's there, and maybe somebody has, you might have a dream, or maybe you have a little bit of a hard time resting, or, I can't say that I have so much of that experience because typically at the end of the day I black out because I'm exhausted. But sometimes it's difficult to sleep at night for whatever reason. Our minds, our bodies are giving us trouble. But then and we've all had the experience, as soon as the sun sort of comes up, or as soon as we see the sunlight, it's like there's a feeling of hope. There's a feeling of everything, anything that, you just feel better. Everything that was not going well, or maybe in your perception was, hard to deal with when it was dark out, somehow becomes a lot easier to deal with when it's sunny. It's a little inexplicable, right? I'm sure we've all had this experience, whether we're sick or whether we're, grappling with a difficult situation, we're trying to figure things out, or we have to talk to somebody or be in a situation the next day where it's you're a little apprehensive. As soon as the sun comes out, or as soon as the sun is visible to us, we all tend to perk up. It's like, as human beings, and we know, it's stated everywhere, human beings need the sun. Our bodies need the sun. We have parts of our body that take in the sun's rays, the sun's energy, and converts it to various things in the body. Where it's said that most human beings are now quite vitamin D deficient because we spend so much time indoors, and we're not really out in the sun as much as we should be. And that creates a whole plethora of health problems if you're vitamin D deficient. You have, just all of our internal systems from red blood cell formulation to um, adjusting our pineal glands so we can rest correctly to I was reading an article about children that were inside all the time during the pandemic. More kids than ever found to have myopia, which is like a kind of a nearsightedness in their eyes because they weren't outside enough to get not only the sunlight in their eyes, because actually your eyes are what helps the body manufacture vitamin D, but also when you're outside and you have full light, there's a better chance of your eyes having the opportunity to perceive depth perception. So there's just so many things that the sun actually does for human beings. We need the sun. We thrive on the sun. And, Kamsa's at the time, I mean, he's in a little bit different category, obviously, than we are. But I'm sure for Kamsa, based on what we've been reading, at the very least, maybe he doesn't need the sun physiologically, or maybe he does. But at the very least, Kamsa needs to have hope because his ego just won't let him believe that he's going to be killed soon and that Krishna's coming for him and that he's, wrong. He doesn't want to face the fact that he's wrong. So we see here, after the night passed, and he was arranging for this great wrestling festival, the Grand Wrestling Festival. And as we read further, we're going to see, he's still directing everything. And, that's some little bit of a testament, I would say, to actually the power of the sun, for this particular point in time, instead of just having, I don't know, I guess the perception that he needs to actually bow down to Krishna and beg forgiveness or worship him or, all the things that we would do as servants of Krishna. He's putting seems like he's putting a lot of faith in the sun, that the sun rose. Oh, the sun rose another day. Now I'm going to continue with my plans. I think many people in the material world feel like this, whether we can perceive that our plans are right or wrong. If the sun, and we've heard it so many times in different places, the sun rises another day, and with each new day, there's fresh hope. So, the sun gives everyone that kind of optimism and enthusiasm and shifts any kind of sort of bad thoughts or the darkness, The sun is actually a symbol of, obviously, the light and of dissipation of ignorance. And the sun has been worshipped for, time immemorial. And in our own Vaishnava culture, our own lineage, the Vivishwan, the sun god, is actually in our parampara, Lord Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to Vivishwan. In fact, he was his very first disciple when he had his ear. Vivishwan was his very first disciple. So he spoke the knowledge, he spoke all of the knowledge of the Gita and the knowledge of Bhakti Yoga. He spoke all that to Vivishwan first. So I just wanted to take a few minutes because we don't hear so much about Vivishwan, who also is known as Surya or Surya Dev. He is a very, very, very powerful demigod or agent of Krishna. And also he's mentioned in the Brahma Samhita. And I'm actually going to read in the Bhagavad Gita because the Brahma Samhita verse is mentioned. And Prabhupada talks quite a lot about the position of Vivishwan in the Bhagavad Gita. So many places, if you just do a general search, so many places in the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada is actually referring to Vivishwan because it's such a symbolic measure of the light, the light and dispelling darkness and coming to the light and gaining knowledge. That's actually the original kind of symbolism that's there. So this is from chapter 4 of the Bhagavad Gita, titled Transcendental Knowledge. And this is text 1. Sri Bhagavanu Vacha Imam Vivashvate Yogam Proktavam Aham Avyayam Vivashvan Manave Praha Manur Ikshvakave Bravit. The personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivashwan, and Vivashwan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku. And then I'm going to read some of this purport, and so we can understand a little bit the position, the exalted position of Vivashwan, Surya, the sun god. Herein we find the history of the Bhagavad Gita traced from a remote time when it was delivered to the royal order of all planets, beginning with the sun planet. The king of all planets are especially meant for the protection, the kings of all planets are especially meant for the protection of the inhabitants, and therefore the royal order should understand the science of Bhagavad Gita in order to be able to rule the citizens and protect them from material bondage to lust. Human life is meant for cultivation of spiritual knowledge and internal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the executive heads of all states and all planets are obliged to impart this lesson to the citizens of education, culture, by education, culture, and devotion. In other words, the executive heads of all states are intended to spread the science of Krishna consciousness so that the people may take advantage of this great science and pursue a successful path, utilizing the opportunity of the human form of life. In this millennium, the sun god is known as Vivashwan, the king of the sun, which is the origin of all planets within the solar system. In the Brahma Samhita, chapter 5, text 52, it is stated, Yak chakshuresha savita sakala grahanam Raja samasta sura murti rasesha teja Yasha gyana pramati sambrita kala chakro Govinda Mari Purusham Tamam Bhajami. Let me worship, Lord Brahma said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, Krishna, who is the original person and under whose order the sun, which is the king of all planets, is assuming immense power and heat. The sun represents the eye of the Lord and traverses its orbit in obedience to his order. The sun is the king of the planets, and the sun god, at present of the name Vivashwan, rules the sun planet, which is controlling all other planets by supplying heat and light. He is rotating under the order of Krishna, and Lord Krishna originally made Vivashwan his first disciple to understand the science of Bhagavad Gita. So this is glorifying Vivashwan, the sun god, as we know him in this millennium. And we actually, as, in our positions, obviously we're worshiping Krishna first, and we're understanding that Krishna's maintaining us and supporting us. And he's also providing so many things that we need to understand him better. So when we think about particularly the science of the Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna is talking to the sun god about this first. That's his first disciple. He's as worshipable as the rest of our parampara, the sun god, Suryadev. And he gives us all so many things that um, we need on a daily basis, like every little bit. We've all had experience of, whether it's seeing everything as it is, everything looks clearer in sunlight. We can choose so many different types of bulbs, or, now there's LED bulbs, or so many things. It doesn't, nothing matches sunlight. Nothing is able to, there's no match, there's no parallel to sunlight. And even elsewhere in the Bhagavad Gita, when he's discussing some of his attributes to Sri Arjuna, uh, he actually says that he is the sun. Um, and, we're able to discern from all of what is said and done in our daily lives as, we're under the sun's shelter to some degree, whether it's the sun who gives us that energy, just as he's giving Kamsa energy. So back to Kamsa, uh, he saw that, there was so many things happening that he couldn't understand, or he wasn't able to, um, realize at the time, based on his covering, based on his envy, his big ego was in the way. But as soon as the sun sort of made his appearance that day, um, Kamsa, even though his uh, consciousness was quite twisted, still had the idea that he was able to function. That actually gave him some power too. Bless you. And if we go back, actually, just so happens the last verse that I had read was about the Gayatri mantra. The first line of the Gayatri mantra is attributing to, it's actually to the sun. The sun is actually the first object of worship in the entire Gayatri mantra, because the sun is giving us so much. The sun is actually, maybe many of you to varying degrees have a some sort of a relationship with the sun. I can personally say that I'm a sun worshiper from way back, which probably I didn't really understand the exalted position of the sun as given so much knowledge and heat and light and enlightenment and nourishment for our human bodies. I didn't realize all those things at the time, but some idea that of the greatness of the sun was there, and we all have that. Nobody can really, scientists can't really pinpoint. They have some idea about how far away the sun is. They have some idea when there's solar flares. They have some idea about different aspects of the sun, but it can't be understood. The sun planet can't be understood by anyone, except for, of course, Krishna, because Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita that he is the sun. And then in the Brahma Samhita, he states that he's the eye of the sun. So that's actually an aspect of Krishna. And when we hear about the Brahma Jyoti, Brahma Jyoti is ostensibly a similar lumens, probably similar light as the sun. It's dazzling, it's effulgent, it's so attractive, it draws us in, that kind of brilliant light. If we're Bhakti Yoga practitioners and we're seeking to know the absolute truth and we're seeking to go toward that knowledge, or that, that ability to be able to absorb, then we want to be closer to the light. We actually want to be further into the light. And seeking that out figuratively and literally as bhakti yoga practitioners is really important. You know, recently we got this new light in the temple room, and I was asking Krishnadas Goswami just about its operation, and he said it should just be on. We should have, as soon as I get up in the morning, I turn all the lights on in my house. So, there's just like that. It's a necessary thing for us to, even for our consciousness, to have the light kind of seep in, whether it's an external show like we see with artificial lights, or if we go outside, we'll see the sun, or internally, as we purify ourselves with chanting and reading these scriptures and learning about these personalities, we can understand that our constitutional position is to move toward the light. It's to move toward knowledge. It's to move toward mode of goodness. Mode of goodness is characterized by, if there was a color, it's yellow. There's that kind of bright, connotation with mode of goodness. And as we go about our daily lives in our practice, that's something that it's always necessary to cultivate, because we've been in the darkness for so long, you know. As we know from Prabhupada's pranam mantra, Chakshur Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. The Guru is putting the ointment, the chakshur, and giving us that knowledge so we can see through the eyes of Shastra, and also in his own Nirvishesha Sunyavadi, he's actually trying to dispel the Mayavad illusion. Illusion means darkness. He said that so many times. Illusion means darkness, and we have to get out of that illusion and come to the light, move toward the light. And that's incumbent on every one of us to look toward those, whether it's a physical sign like the sun, or if we're opening a book, or we're doing our constitutional position, our dharma in devotional service, we can feel like that's pushing us, that's impelling us closer to Krishna, closer toward the light. Krishna's body is self-effulgent. He doesn't need, he does not need, and the spiritual planets, Vaikuntha, they're self-effulgent. They don't need light of the sun. They don't need artificial lighting. They don't need those things, because they're always in goodness. Goodness means light, and that carries over to when we read about these things and when we chant the Maha Mantra, seeking the light. That's our consciousness. Our consciousness is actually, if we're on the right path, it's seeking that. Kamsa, however, was not on the right path. He was still holding on to false hope that somehow he would be able to execute his plans without Krishna's interference or without his involvement. And that's the little bit of that's indicative of our little bit of a demonic tendency. We all have it, every single one of us. I would say maybe not so much animals aren't aware of it, but even they have it, because they're conditioned to just do their, four things. They're not incurring karma because of it, because they don't realize they're doing it. Human beings realize that they should realize anyway. We have the ability to realize that we're not doing things on the right side of Krishna, that we're in the Kamsa mentality. We're trying to do things ourselves to satisfy our ego, to satisfy our material desires, to satisfy our lust, our anger, our greed, or whatever kind of anarthas. So we're all in that boat, and we're all trying to remedy that, particularly those of us who have taken up, who are practitioners and have taken up the practice, the everyday practice of bhakti yoga, which is highly purifying. that purificatory agent of devotional service, the chanting, the reading, sadhu sangha. It's a holistic thing to help our mentality, even our physical bodies, to try and become purified. And the more our physical bodies become purified, the more our subtle bodies become dissolved and help dissolve quickly. And unfortunately, for Kamsa, as we'll see in the coming verses, as he's attempting to get things together, presumably to facilitate Krishna's demise, um, it's kind of a sad thing to watch. It's kind of like watching a train wreck in slow motion. You know what the end's going to look like, but you can't look away. And it's so much instruction for us because we're all, I've heard in different lectures, and I'm not sure if Prabhupada said it, but everybody's like little Kamsa. We're all trying to just do our whatever we want to do, and we're trying to do it independent of Krishna. And so we see, very easily when we're reading the Bhagavatam, particularly the 10th canto, which is highly technical, that Krishna is showing us we can't do it alone. We need Krishna. We need Krishna in all his agents and all his forms. And whether we're, getting energy from the sun, or we're praying to, we're praying for Radharani to be in his service, or we're actually, taking the cue from Lord Balaram to, give him whatever paraphernalia he needs. All those things that we do as a servant of Krishna are helping to, dispatch that mini Kamsa mentality. And it's a daily thing. It's not like you do it and it's one and done, or it's some and done. You just have to keep doing and doing and doing and doing until the end of life. One time, Bir Krishna Das Goswami said, in this temple room, we just keep serving and serving and serving and serving. And then if you're not thinking about too much and you're just chanting and serving, then one day you'll kind of realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm not in my current condition anymore. I'm not in my body. I'm in the spiritual world now, and I'm serving. And Haribo, and you just keep serving. There's not any, it's seamless. It's seamless. And even I was reading elsewhere in the Bhagavad Gita recently, and we all know this, that um, as you're serving in this material world, you don't even feel like you are in this material world. You can simultaneously be in this world and not be in this world by the devotional service if you're that absorbed. So that's what our attempt is to try to dispel the Kamsa mentality, be wholly and solely mind, body, and thoughts, words, deeds. Try to be extremely focused in our Krishna consciousness and our devotional service without any deviation, and that will assure us all success. We have Srila Prabhupada to thank for all of that. So there's like a minute, or maybe not. I don't know if anybody has any comments. Yes? Right. Mm, right, right. Yeah, that's a beautiful pastime. Yeah. Yeah, the sun somehow, it's funny, it feels like he's weaved in a lot of our pastimes, but he's not given so much, I don't know, like glory or something. I don't know. He's there so effulgently, maybe because he's just so effulgent that it's a given. It's easy to overlook the thing that's glaring you in the face, right? Yeah, she went back to the sun planet. Satyabhama. Mm. Hmm. That's interesting because
Adipurusham bhajami Govindam Adipurusham bhajami Govindam Adipurusham bhajami Enam Kanvanda Aravindalayatatam Bhagavatam Samasitam Buddhasundaram Tandar Atom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobha Govindam Adipurusham Tanaham bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tanaham bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tanaham bhajami Andaniya Sakale Priya Priti Manti Vasyan Vipa Vikayanti Viramagati Ananda Chimaya Sadhu Jala Vikrasya Govinda Adipurusham Tamaham bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Nijajari utaji eva bolo hari hari mukunda murari Rama Krishna Ayagriva Hari Hari Mukunda Murari Rama Krishna Griva Nashringa Vamana Shimadasu Dana Rajendranan Dana Shama Shringavamana Shimada Sudana Rajendranan Dana Shama Putana Gatana Kaitabashatana Jaya Dasarati Rama Putana Gatana Kaitabashatana Jaya Dasarati Rama Yasodulala Govinda Gopala Vrindavana Puranda Ara Dulala Govinda Gopala Vrindavana Puranda Ara Gopi Priya Jana Radhikara Mana Bhuvana Sundara Bara Gopi Priya Jana Radhikara Mana Bhuvana Sundara Bara Ravana Takara Makana Taskara Gopi Jana Vasya Hari Ravana Takara Gopi Jana Vasya Hari Prajita Kala Gopa Brinda Bala Chitta Hari Bamsit Hari Prajita Kala Gopa Brinda Bala Chitta Hari Bamsit Hari Yogindra Bandana Shri Nandanandana Prashachana Baya Hari Indra Bandana Shri Nandanandana Prashachana Baya Hari Navina Nirada Rupamanohara Mohana Bamsi Bihari Navina Nirada Rupamanohara Mohana Bamsi Bihari Yasodanandana Kamsa Nishudana Nikunjara Savi Lasi Nandana Shudana Nikunjara Savi Lasi Kadamba Kanana Rasaparayana Brinda Vipina Nivasi Hambakanana Rasaparayana Brinda Vipina Nivasi Kadamba Kanana Rasaparayana Brinda Vipina Nivasi Ananda Vardana Premani Ketana Pula Sarayojak Kama Vardana Premani Ketana Pula Sarayo Jakama Gopanga Ganana Chitta Vinodana Samasta Guna Gana Dhamma Ganana Chitta Vinodana Samasta Guna Gana Dhamma Gopanga Ganana Chitta Vinodana Samasta Guna Gana Dhamma Yamuna Jivana Kele Parayana Manasa Chandra Jako Ora Muna Jivana Kele Parayana Manasa Chandra Jako Ora Namasudharasa Gayo Krishna Yasa Rakovachana Mana Mora Namasudharasa Gayo Krishna Yasa Rakovachana Man Mora Vivada Veshesha Aloka Pravesha Nija Jari Uta Jiva Vivada Veshesha Aloka Pravesha Nija Jari Uta Jiva Bolo Hari Hari Mukunda Murari Rama Krishna Ayagri Iba Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Nitya Gaura Haribo 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 Nitya Gaura Haribo Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Radha Golokananda Radha Golokananda Radha Golokananda Shri Radhe Radha Golokananda Radha Golokananda Radha Golokananda Shri Radhe Jaya Shama Sundar Radha Shama Sundar Radha Shama Sundar Shri Radhe Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Giri Govardhan Giri Govardhan Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Giri Govardhan Giri Govardhan Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Shri Radhe Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Shri Radhe Jaya Vishnu Pad Paramam Sapavaka Jodi Osto Tarasat Jishima His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnu Paramahamsa Pavagatariya Sotara Satarshi Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Sri Das Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se Gaur Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopanath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavana Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Shri Munamaya Ki Jai. Gangamaya Ki Jai. Shri Mati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Goloka Ki Jai. The night has come to an end, and the light of dawn is entering. O Jiva's soul, arise and give up your sleep. Chant the holy names of Lord Hari, giver of liberation, enemy of demon Mura, supreme enjoyer, all attractive and Har Griva, the horse-headed incarnation. Narasimha, half man, half lion incarnation. Brahmana, dwarf Brahmana incarnation. Killer of demon Madhu, beloved son of Braja's ruler, beautifully dark complexion, slayer of witch Putana, destroyer of demon Kandava, and victorious son of Dasarath, Lord Rama, darling of Yasoda, giver of pleasure to cows, land, and spiritual senses, cow protector, Lord of Vrindavan, the gopis' beloved, love of Radhika, and the most beautiful in all the worlds, cause of demon Ravana's demise as Lord Rama, butter thief, robber of the gopi girls' clothes, young herdsman of Braj, protector of the other coward boys, thief of our hearts, and flute carriers, worshipped by the best of the yogis, Nanda's joy, remover of all the fresh rain cloud, while wandering and playing a flute. So does joy, vanquisher of demon King Kamsa, and joy of the rasa dance among the forest groves, and especially under the kadamba trees, and resident of the woods of Brinda, increasing